different spot. But yeah, you're going to need to get some estimates of the spaces to be able to submit in on your budget of how much it's going to cost you.
Okay.
Did that answer it? Is there more to it, or?
Nope, that answers the question. Thank
Okay. And Dennis already talked about underserved. So the difference between modified direct cost and total federal funds. So I can see you're right there with your hand up. Would you like to come off mute? Is that what's your question right here?
No, I guess I've got two questions for you that I did pose that one.
Okay, so when calculating the budget, modified direct cost is everything before you put in indirect. So when you're calculating in your budget, modified direct line will be right before it, and then your indirects, and then total federal funds. So that's the best way I can clarify that. So if you had another question, might as well.
I do. I'm going to go back to the equipment if you don't
Okay.
mind, because
Sure.
from my experience, this is unusual that we can put equipment in over maybe a threshold of $2,000. And sometimes it, in some RFPs or some programs, that is dependent on who's going to own or take possession of and maintain the equipment after the grant period ends.
These are all questions we're going to be, if you try to put in equipment, that have to be answered. It doesn't mean that we'll accept everything, but you can always put it in and see what happens.
Yeah,
Well,
Steve, can I weigh in on that, please?
Sure, please.
Yeah, when you have over $5,000 request, that's equipment. Less than 5,000 supplies. Now, with BFRDP, sometimes we get requests for $70,000 for tractor, or maybe $30,000 for a vehicle. BFRDP is for 3 years. It's not a research program. It's 100% outreach and education. So we do not allow such high purchases in BFRDP. So I hope that helps to clarify equipment.
I think that does clarify a little bit, because for a moment there, I thought that perhaps you could purchase some farm equipment. I don't think many of us would put in a piece of equipment for 70,000. But if equipment is eligible, we might very well put in something for 10,000, 12,000. From my understanding now, I think you're advising that we do not do that.
Because it's a 3-year program.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I think that does clarify.
You're welcome.
So I see another hand up. Do you want to just go with this right now and ask your question?
Yes, please. This yeah, I'm just curious.
You have a really bad echo. I can't actually hear you speaking.
Okay, let me type it in.
Okay, so why that's happening, we'll look at the next question. Land rents, how about purchasing? Purchasing land is not something that you're going to want to try with this. It's something that I've never seen done. And Dennis, I don't believe we would even allow someone to purchase land through BFRDs.
No, we don't. Yeah, we don't.
So that question is completely out. And land rental, if you need to rent a piece of land, that's different than trying to buy it. So the next question, what are supporting partners? So when you have a sub under 50%, we're still going to want to see something just to kind of know that they're in support of your project. So I would still get those even though they are under 50%, just to satisfy whoever's going to review it, say, oh, okay, they're there, they're in support. I would treat all subs the same and just get all the documents up front. So letter of commitment, statement of work, budget and budget justification. I hope that answers your question, Beth. Let's see the next question we have. I don't have the rights to grant recording permissions. Sorry about that.
It's recording.
Okay. Stipends. As to stipends, I'm gonna have to say that this is something I'm gonna ask Dennis and how he wants to handle this.
I can respond. Thank you, Steve.
Mhm.
When it comes to stipends, you want to ensure that farmer stipends are allowable, but not cash. You want to ensure that you are giving stipends for the benefit of having a good job done with the program you are working with. Now, if you're gonna pay the individuals whom you are training to do some work in support of the program, that is beneficial and helpful. But when you say, because they are going to lose 5 hours of pay from their regular job, you're going to give them stipend for that, that doesn't look too good. And you need to concentrate on how you're going to work with those individuals that you are training and provide them with the regular stipends for lodging, accommodation, transportation, conference registration, and concentrate exactly on working with them in your program. And do not bring any outside information into what you are asking for, because awards management is not relevant for them for you to share with them what is going on outside of your work. I hope that helps.
Okay, so Dennis, we actually have another question that you might be able to help on. So Jess is asking about the age limit for participants. Wanting to know if they can enroll someone at 17 instead of 18 years old, or is there an age limit? I'm not sure of that question as to AMD side. So
16 and over, yes. Because
Okay.
by the time they are 18, they are ready to start farming. So 16 and over, yes. 16 and under, no.
Thank you, Dennis.
You're welcome.
So we have another question on matching here. So if your organization can cover the entire amount, that's basically cash matching. So your organization is covering 100% or the 25% of matching without going outside. If you'd like to do that and put that in, please go right ahead. You do not have to go out and seek matching if you can do it in-house. Repeat the question. Sorry. So Dennis, someone was asking about underserved again.
Okay, I can explain that one more time, please. Underserved does not mean you are a minority. Underserved means you have challenges getting access to USDA programs and services. So if that is the group you are serving, in your budget justification, at the top of your budget justification, you state that this applicant is serving underserved population and is hereby requesting a match waiver. That is all you need to get your match waiver. It doesn't mean that you are serving minorities. I hope that helps.
I had a further question on that. So is that, how would we prove that? Is it based on distance to an FSA office, or that's kind of my question. I get what it's not.
Yeah, that's a good question. It depends on the group of individuals you are going to be serving. If you are serving or trying to train individuals, say for example, They are making over 200,000 a year in salary, and they have access to all the programs and services they can get. Then I wouldn't consider those underserved population because they do not have any challenges based on their means and their knowledge of what is going on, be able to get access to programs and services. But for some of the trainees you're going to be training, they may not have full access to internet. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
The next question that we have is actually about food. And for food, I'm actually going to ask Russell to email me. I'm putting my email address in the bottom in the chat, and we'll go over that.
I can respond to that, Steve.
Okay, go right ahead.
In terms of food with BFRDP, food is unallowable. The only time refreshments are allowable, all times refreshments are allowable. The only time food is allowed is, for example, if you're having a lunch with a speaker, and the purpose of the lunch is to ensure that everyone doesn't wander away, to ensure that the speaker is well heard, then yes, it's allowed. Or if you're in an environment where being able to cater food individually is impossible, then food is allowed. Otherwise, you cannot say, well, because we're all having breakfast, we're going to pay for everybody. That is not allowed.
So Dennis, actually, we have another couple of questions about the length of term for BFRDP. Some people are putting 3 and 5 years in there, and there's a few questions on this. One person actually has something that's saying 5 to 7 years for them to harvest for measurable results. So
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. By legislation, Congress does not allow more than 3 years. It's a 3-year term limit. Now, if you're not able to complete, you can then apply again in your 3rd year of project work to continue. But there's a limit of 3 years for BFRDP. And that is set by Congress. We did not set that up.
So our next question is from Nikki, and it is about building a facility on existing land. And I'm going to say, Nikki, that you're not going to be able to use this money for building. This is not a grant of that type. Dennis, do you have anything else?
That is correct. That is correct. It cannot be used for buildings or repair of infrastructure. Crystal and Rebecca, you can chime in any point.
So we had a question here about the financial records. If you're brand new to USDA NIFA and we've never worked with you before, what we're going to need is several pieces of information to make a file for us to be able to say, well, we've reviewed you and we feel that we can give this money to you and it's going to be used for what's going on. This is a restriction on us. We have to ask for certain pieces of information. If you've been with the government, getting several grants a year, every year, there's other restrictions that you have to go by. So BFRD is one that normally draws in brand new people to the grant world. And 2 years of financial statements is one of the things we ask for.
Is that could I just follow up on that? Is that a requirement of the application, or if you are granted the money, then you have to provide that?
Well, that is in an AMD portion. So by the time you would get to us, you would already have gotten past programs approval for your project. We'll be
Okay.
going over the administrative portion of it, and that would be a part that we would need to say administratively, you can handle this grant.
So that will be due by the time we turn our application in, basically. Is that
No,
just-
no,
oh,
no.
okay.
That
All right.
you'll be turning your application, and that's after you turn it in. It's going to go through a review with Dennis and Crystal, and a few other people are going to look at it, and they're going to rank them and approve who's going to get the money.
Got
Then
it.
it comes to AMD. That's when we start asking for those.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. The next question we have is actually about stipends again, unfortunately. Crystal, do you have something you'd like to throw in about stipends, or?
I had to leave the call and come back, so I'm not exactly sure what was covered already, but Dennis, have you talked about what can be he has? Okay. Then no, I don't really have any other things to add. If you have questions about stipends and you would like more information on it, you can always email us and we'll be happy to answer your questions. Or if you have any more that you want to come off mute and ask right now. But what Dennis just shared would be what I would initially go with. And then if you have additional questions about that, you can contact us.
Yeah, thank you, Crystal.
I have a follow-up. He said it cannot be given as cash. And I was just confused by that. So basically what you're saying is we can't pay people to participate in this program, but
That
we
is
could pay.
correct.
Okay, but if they needed like a bus fare to get there, or they needed something like that, we could give them that. Okay.
That's correct.
Now-
You can use it for travel or hotel, things like that, but you cannot give cash for incentives to come to the program.
It's best to use a check or some form where you can track what is going on with the funds in case you get audited. Any additional questions, please?
They actually keep coming in quite constantly. They want to know about greenhouses counting as a building for BFRD grants.
Building houses,
Greenhouses.
yeah, that's allowable. I mean, you can use
Greenhouses are allowable, but again, the point of the funding is to educate the participant on farming. So if it's going to be something that is used in very specifically to teach and educate farmers, then a greenhouse is allowable. Just equipment to have is where the issues come in, or expensive equipment or equipment that can be rented instead of bought.
So we have a question with someone who has a hand raised. Shauna Adams. Would you like to come off mute? And
I was trying. Can you hear me?
yes.
There we go. It was jumping back and forth between my AirPods and my computer, and it didn't know what we were doing. So I do have a question. An idea that we were tossing around here in our community is that we have a lot of young people who want to be involved in agriculture, but don't have the facilities at this time to be able to do that. Would we, when we're talking like greenhouses being able to be built to teach and to train and to encourage, is this funding opportunity able to be used to create like a land lab type facility? So where young people who may not have the resources at hand could like have 4-H and FFA animals on that facility.
high tunnels are allowable, and movable structures are allowable, not standing structures. I hope that helps.
It did. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we had another question about equipment purchases. Jesse, I have put my email address in the chat already. If you can just email me, we'll go over what you're talking about as your equipment. Because like Dennis had mentioned earlier, when you start to go equipment over 5,000, it's not something this project is trying to conduct. It's for educational purposes, and that's teaching. So the next question is the rental value. So if someone is going to donate a site for you to do training, as far as I know, we can't accept that as match. Correct, Dennis? Crystal, it's something that's
if
it's
someone
an
is gonna,
in-kind.
let me state this again about match. I would say in my years of service, a good 90 to 95% of our trainers are eligible for match because of the audience they are working with. So I don't really believe that should be much of a concern. If you are concerned about that, please feel free to call us at any time. And if you are declined or rejected, we will share with you exactly the process you need to take. Now, we have asked to have a zero match, but that hasn't come true yet. So please do all you can to ensure that you are training the group you are recruiting for the purpose of this very program. And we'll do our best to work with you.
So the next question I have, actually reading here, is something I believe, Crystal, you could help answer. Someone's getting funds from the state of California, which come from the federal government. Can they use those? I don't believe we can take that, can we? As a match?
No.
Dennis, go ahead.
No.
Yeah. So that would be, that would not be allowable.
Okay.
I was going a different direction. I thought they were going to ask, could they, still, go for BFRDP or, BFRDP funds. And I was going to say that if you're getting funds from other areas, then that does not count as a BFRDP funding. But you want to mention that if it's part of the program that you're also applying for.
Once there are no more questions for Steve, then we'll go into the BFRDP program and talk about BFRDP. So we have 45 minutes left, and we thank you all for your patience.
So we're continuing on with questions, Dennis?
Yeah, then if you have any more presentations, we'll go ahead with your presentations.
No more presentations, just going through answering all the questions.
Okay, let's go ahead and keep on answering. Once we are done with that, then we'll continue with BFRDP. And then Crystal can make some comments from the slides. One point I wanted to mention is in terms of eligibility on page 16. That is very important. Please, if you have LLC, incorporation, or 501c3, or academia, you are eligible to apply. So I know we have a language here from legislation that says grants and cooperative agreements do have eligibility, school-based, non-profits, for-profits. Now, the basic difference we have is that you don't have to have years of experience to apply. That is why we have the different grant types: simplified, small standard, medium standard, large standard, and then education team. So you apply to the one you know is a good fit for the individuals you're going to train. I'll stop at that. If there are no additional questions on the chart, We
They're
can start with
actually-
these slides. Yeah.
There's like 18 more questions, 19 more questions. Do you want to just continue with the slides and we can copy the chat and try to get back to them and answer them by email later if we don't get back to them
Sure,
today?
sure.
So Crystal, I think
Okay,
it's,
I'll go ahead and share those slides. Let me answer one question in the chat and then I will get to the slides. Okay. All right, well, let's get to the slides. We'll move on with the program. Okay, are you seeing that? No, you're not, huh?
no, we're still seeing your picture.
While Crystal is trying to get the slides up, we're going to send out information. We're going to have questions and answer period on March 28th from 1 to 3 Central. Again on April 11th from 1 to 3 Central. Now, in between those, if you would like to set up a time to meet with us as a BFRDP team, we'll be happy to do that. We cannot share with you what to put in your proposal, but we can give you some tips as well as answer any questions you have.
Okay, so this is, we're going to go through a few of the PowerPoints and go through some information. All this information you can find in your, in the RFA. And again, if you have any questions after this review, then please do not hesitate to reach out to us, and we will be able to assist you. So you heard from many of these people, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of move through these slides pretty fast and fill in the gaps that have not already been discussed. These are the people that are involved with AMD and the program BFRDP. So if you jot down the names and you have any questions, you can always reach out to us, and these slides will be shared, so you'll get this information. Most of the people at the USDA is their first name dot last name at USDA.gov. That's the case for about 90% of us. So if you need an email, it's probably going to be that way, or you can reach out to us and we can send you the email directly. And so Denis has kind of went over the outreach in a socially disadvantaged and talked about the 2501 program. So I'm going to move along pretty quickly, and Deb has talked about the funding for this year. And so again, I'm just going to move along and hit the areas and gaps. BFRDP is a competitive program, so you'll be putting in your proposal against other proposals, and then it will be reviewed and ranked, and that's how you'll find out if you get funding. Are you able to see the slides right now? Just want to make sure everyone can see them. I know we're having some technical difficulties today.
Yeah, they come through.
Okay, good. All right. I'm pretty sure Denis has already went over what a beginner farmer is, but just keep in mind that it's the less than 10-year mark. Denis, have you went over the different program basics?
I just talked about them a few minutes ago.
Okay, all right. So if you have any questions, you could refer to the slide. Basically, you have small, medium, and large, and then simplified is less than 49,999. Remember that number. You want to go below that. And then that's for 1 year. So that's the difference between those. You have the 3 years, and then you have that one at 1 year. And then you have the educational team. And if you have questions about what that entails, you can always contact us. But that's more of your train the trainer, and that also lasts 3 years. Clearinghouse is every 3 years it's competed. So we just competed this past year, so 2 more years. It will be competed again. And if you're interested in that, you can read in the RFA and also contact us. So I'm going to skip through because Denis has talked a little bit about this. Legislative priorities, it came about in the 2018 Farm Bill. And I'm pretty sure Denis has covered a little bit of that. But please look that up. It's also in the RFA, and it talks about the basic livestock, forest management, crop farming practices, innovative farm, ranch, and private non-industrial forest, land transfer and succession strategies, entrepreneurship and business training, technical assistance, financial and risk management, natural resource management, diversification, and market strategies. Curriculum development, mentoring, apprenticeships and internships, resources and referral, and farm financial benchmarking. So again, these are the legislative priorities that came about in the 2018 Farm Bill. You can look that up, or you can look it up in the RFA. And of course, as always, you can ask us questions. We put these in here to go in more detail so that you can look at them and read them at your leisure. And again, we'll be sharing these.
Yeah,
Talk a little
Crystal.
bit-
Yeah,
Yes.
Crystal, if I may add, in terms of the priorities, other priorities that you have in mind that are of state, county, local significance, you can work on them and give your rationale as to why you are choosing those priorities. Go ahead,
Yes.
please.
Yeah, and just to say this, because it's a good spot to put it, the BFRDP is not, I answered this in the chat, but it's not for individuals. This is for your educational programs across the country. If you're interested in individual resources, you can always contact me, and I have a number of local resources that you can, such as extension, SARE projects, etc., that you can, I can definitely send you. But if you're interested in that, send me an email and then I'll reply to you with a number of resources. We do not have like a list of resources at NIFA. You can find USDA.gov sites in your extension sites that will have a number of resources, or again, I can point you to directions. So if you have any, if you're here for individual funding for BFRDP projects on your own as an individual, then just send me an email and I'll be able to help you at least identify some of those. Evaluation criteria, it's important to us that you know what you're being evaluated on and what your project is being looked at for. So you'll find this in the RFA so that you can print it out and make sure that your proposal is hitting all these spots and you know exactly how many points are going to each criteria. So you want to think about partnership and collaboration, and I'm not going to go through all of these. Again, you'll get these slides and you'll see exactly how many points are going towards it. And then if you have any questions, you can contact us. And the better way to make sure is to actually print it up and make sure that you're hitting all these areas. You really, really want to make sure, I want to stress that you want to hit every single area. You don't want to leave any questions for the reviewers. You want to make sure that your proposal is clear and concise and answers and hits these spots very simply and very to the facts, and make sure that that doesn't leave any questions. I wouldn't even change the name of the sections. I would leave them the same so that they know exactly where it is and what it pertains to when they're reading your proposal, and they don't have to guess or have any questions. Again, these are just different criteria. Expertise and track record of applicants, I want to point out. Make sure that you're putting the people on your proposal that are going to be a benefit to your proposal, and make sure that your project is a success. Partnerships and collaborations, this is a big one. Make sure that you're collaborating with your extension and your agribility and other state level project or state level organizations and universities. And extension is a big part of that. You want to make sure that the project is achievable in the amount of time that you're wanting the project to not only last, but you have 3 years if you're going for one of the standards. So you want to make sure that it's doable and achievable. Oops, excuse me. Data format, you want to make sure that you have a data management plan. And you want to make sure that it's concise and that the reviewers, again, can find it and they know exactly what they're looking for and they're able to read and understand exactly what it's for. You want to know who your audience is, and we need to know who your audience is. So make sure you make that clear so that we know exactly who would be getting the project and for how long and exactly what the budget is. If you're going to do an educational team project, that's more of your train the trainer. This is not your standard grant. This is completely different. So if you have questions about this, you can get a hold of us, but look into the RFA. It really explains it very well. You want to make sure that you're not duplicating anything and that your contact project team to discuss topic areas if you have any questions about this. We get a lot of projects that put into the educational team, thinking because it's an educational project that, you know, they're educating farmers, that's where it belongs. But that's why we ask in the RFA and during the webinars that you contact us if you have questions about this, because most of the projects that we receive in the educational team actually belong in standard. So if you have any questions, please let us know. And a good thing to point out here, if you're putting in a proposal, you really need to use the PDF and not a PDF generator. Make sure that you're actually using PDFs. And if you put in your proposal about 2 weeks early, a week to 2 weeks early, or a week and a half, let's say a week and a half to 2 weeks early, you can email me and I can go in the system to make sure that we have it and there's not an error after you submit. Now, I can't tell you if you're going to get, you know, funded or if the project is good or if, you know, your content is right. I can't do any of that. But what I can do is go in, just make sure it's there and that we can see it. And if you would like me to do that again, make sure it's about a week and a half to 2 weeks, because once we get closer and closer, we're doing things behind the scenes to get ready for the panel and making sure that your proposal is there and ready and uploaded. So about a week and a half to 2 weeks early. Do your homework. Make sure that you're looking at things, that you're looking at old abstracts. Here's a link to abstracts. We don't share the entire proposal, but there are definitely abstracts, and you could get objectives, you could get main ideas, you can get the point of the project from those abstracts. So it's a really good tool to use. Farmanswers.org is another huge one. Make sure that you're looking at all of this information and that you're doing your homework, looking at other BFRDP projects that may be in your area if they're welcoming you. And make sure that you have an idea of what's out there, what's being funded, and what your project needs and your proposal needs to include. So I heard when I was coming on that Denis was talking about socially disadvantaged and the veteran population. We fund minimum 5%. That comes from the Farm Bill. So 5% to underserved and 5% socially disadvantaged beginner farmer veteran populations. This doesn't really have much to do on your side, but it's good to know. So you don't have to have 5% of your project going to this. This is saying that BFRDP has a minimum requirement of 5% of the projects that include this to be funded, is what this is saying. So the groups, and I heard Denis talk about this, so I won't spend a lot of time on this, but here's your groups that are talked about is the African American, American Indian or Alaska Natives, Hispanics, Asians, Pacific Islanders, and women, and these belong under that 5%. Direct and indirect costs, John talked about this, so I won't spend time on this, but if you have questions, you can absolutely reach out. And we have a link also that will be shared and you can look at that information for definitions. Farm workers, refugees, immigrants, these are important aspects to think about and include. And these definitions you can look up or we can send them to you and they're in the RFA. These are just some strategies that we want to put out there and to think about. One-on-one training, cultural norms. Make sure you're thinking about the difference between the cultures and the cultural groups. That could be important, especially when farming and thinking about food security and food sovereignty. So those are things that you want to incorporate into your project and your proposal. You want to make sure you have effective partnerships, without effective partnerships and needed partnerships, and the partnerships that are available. If you're outreaching to other states and they're not available in your state, then your participants won't be able to use those resources. So making sure there are effective partnerships and innovative approaches to outreach, coming up with different ways to get that word out and get your outreach out. and we talked about the military veteran. So I'll go over, I'm a military veteran. I served 10 years, also served in combat with 101st, 82nd Airborne, 10th Mountain Division, and 101st Airborne. So this is kind of a passion of mine. My dissertation was on veterans that farm and that use veteran specific programs to learn farming. And so that's a big part of BFRDP. And we, of course, the 5% funding goes towards veteran military programs. So if you're interested in being funded for a veteran program for agriculture, you can always get a hold of me, and I have lots of knowledge on that. Also, we share a map. We have two main maps. One is all the projects for the 20 different years, but the 2022 being the last one, projects across the country. And then, of course, the veteran programming group. So if you're interested in just the veteran program on its own, we have a map for that, and I can send you resources for veterans only. Or if you are wanting information, like I said earlier, on all farmers and resources, you can also send me that email and I can send you that. Veteran farmer or rancher means exactly what you would think it would mean. It's a farmer or rancher who served in the military, naval, or air service, and who was discharged with an honorable, under honorable conditions. So if you have questions about that and you want to look it up, we left the reg for you to look it up. So basically, it's not much different than any of the other subsets, but you need to provide evidence of your ability to serve the needs of this audience. And so you want to make sure that you're including some kind of veteran piece to that. And I would highly suggest that you have some veterans on the team to make sure that, one, they're able to outreach to the group because it's such a closed group. And you also want to make sure that you have knowledge, because that is a different culture, a different subset that knows how to deal with not only the veterans themselves, but some of the challenges that come along with working with military veterans. You also want to include and incorporate and think about the VA. Some of them will not want to go to the VA because they don't want to be included in government groups, but also some of them are already at the VA. And so that's something to think about when you're working with military veterans. Agribility works with not only farmer projects, and I'll go over that in a minute, but they also work with veterans, and it is a big piece. And there's a difference between agribility working with farmers and agribility working with military veterans. The biggest difference is agribility helps all farmers continue to farm productively and safely. The extra step with veterans is they can help with finding them resources, land, not fund that land, but help them find land that's available for them to buy. Another project to think about is the Enhancing Agriculture Opportunities for Military Veterans, or the Ag Vets program. And this is similar to the BFRDP. It's smaller and it must be headed by a nonprofit. So if you're a nonprofit lead and you're interested in the Ag Vets program that serves military veterans and their families only, then you can get a hold of me and we can talk about these two programs. Again, agribility has increased the likelihood that farmers and ranchers will be successful and also safe. So their area, they're like a social work connection. They help with assistance, education, networking, and marketing. This is a great resource. It's not in all states right now. It's currently in 22 states. But if you're interested and you want to know more about agribility, or you want resources as a farmer, they have resource guides online. And other states usually will help the states that don't have an agribility project. So if you're in a state that doesn't currently have an agribility project, the one next to you might help and might be at least able to give you resources. There is a veteran liaison for the agribility project. His name is Joe Ricker. If you are serving just veterans, then you can get in contact with him and he can help you with additional resources. There's also a agribility veteran page. And if you email me, I can get you all those resources, whether it be veteran specific or farmer specific on agribility or the Ag Vets program. Agribility is also a competitive program, but it's a state program. It's ran by your 1862 or 1890 land grants. So they're their main partner, and then they have partners throughout the state. So this is a great resource. Again, if you're interested in running a program, you would have to be a land grant lead, and then you would have to have partners throughout the project, and you would be the one state project within that state, and it's competitive. So if you want to look up the RFA, it's out now and it's due very soon. I think it's due this week. All right, so that the national project has a lot of resources and actually has a lot of research. So if you're interested in looking at farming, safety and health and productivity, you can look on the National Agribility Project website and you can find that information. And there is also a link if you're looking at veteran specific programs that you can go to and look at resources such as land access and such. The different types of applications are new, resubmission, and renewal. And these can get kind of blurred and complicated when you're putting in multiple proposals or multiple steps to your proposal. But new means it's brand new and you're putting it in for the first time, or you've made significant changes to your objectives and so forth, and you're putting in an application. So if you put in an application last year and it was not funded, and you're putting in a new one, but you're completely changing objectives, you're completely changing structures, partners, then that's a new project. It's no longer the same project because it's significantly different. Resubmission is
Crystal, renewal. Go ahead, please. We don't have renewals anymore.
Yeah, when we got to that, I was gonna say that we no longer have that. Resubmission is what you would think. It's an application that's been reviewed, you did not get funded, and you're just addressing a few of the comments and you're resubmitting it. So, and again, like Dennis just said, there is no renewal at this point anymore. So we actually need to take that off. But if you have questions in the difference between new and resubmission, just send me an email and I can answer those and go through those with you. I've already had quite a bit of questions about this. So if I've already talked to you, then I'm glad you reached out to me and we discussed it. If you have additional questions, you can reach out to me. But again, if it's new objectives, you're probably looking at a new project. If you've got new partners, it's probably new. And resubmission would be just addressing those comments and tightening up the proposal to resubmit and hopefully get funded. I heard them talking about match, so I won't go over that, but applications require 25% match and it could be waived. So if you have questions about that, and I heard them go over that, so I'm not going to go into detail, but if you have questions about that or you're considering getting the waiver, please contact us and let us know. The deadline is April 27th. Make sure that your application is in at least a week before that. You will have issues on grants.gov. You will have issues submitting your proposal. So just prepare for that. Know that it's coming and do it well before the April 27th guideline deadline. And if you want, I can go in there and make sure it's sitting there and I see it and that it's available to read. 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So again, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is the deadline. So if you're in a different time zone, please adjust for that time zone difference and make sure that it's in 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So is this grant for you? Is this what you want to do? Are you eligible? Do you have collaborative partners? Can you shine in all the criteria? Can you meet the April 27th deadline for the application submission? And these are your main basic high-level questions. So you want to take a look at that and really be honest with yourself and the project and make sure that it fits and that it fits the BFRDP objectives. The application process, you go on to grants.gov. And you make sure that you are following the steps completely. Make sure that you are looking back to make sure that you have completed those steps. You can submit an application as many times as you want, but the last timestamp is the one that we're going to take as your official submission. So if you submit 3 different proposals and you really want it to go with the second one, then you need to submit again, because if you submit another one, then I'm going to take that third one and that's going to be the one that gets reviewed. So make sure, don't contact me and say, I want you to look at the second version of that, because we can't do that. We don't have the ability to do that. We would go with the third. So if you wanting the second version, then you need to submit again for the 4th time and make sure you're submitting that second version. Does that make sense? So that your last thing that you submit is the thing that you want reviewed. Make sure you have high-speed connection, and you're not losing connection, because that tends to mess up the application and mess up what you're submitting. Again, PDFs are different. I didn't realize that PDFs were different, but I'm learning that there actually there are different versions of PDF. Make sure that the version that you are using is the version that comes with Word or such, you know, something like that. Do not use a PDF generator. For some reason, they do not go with our applications and they don't work. So you'll end up putting it on the site and it will look like it's updated and it's there. But when we try to open it, it says that there's a document error. Again, if you do it early, I can go in and make sure you don't have any of those errors. Make sure that you're reading the application word for word. Spend a lot of time reading these applications. We put an extreme amount of time into writing these RFAs because we want it to be your guide. We want it to be your roadmap to putting in the proposal. It's not tricky. We're not trying to trick you. We want it to be as simple and easy as possible. We want you to follow directions very simply. Don't be too outside the box and too creative with your wording. Make sure that the reviewers completely understand that this section goes with this section goes with this, and this is what we're trying to say. This is our budget, and this is what we'll be doing. This is the project objectives, very, very matter of fact, and with the RFA. And we really do spend a lot of time with that RFA to make sure that it's very, it's a roadmap for you. And each section is talked about and explained, and as much as we think that it needs to be. If you see something that there's a gap and you say, hey, this would be better understood this way, send me an email. We would love to get some feedback on that and update and, continue to grow and continue to improve our RFA every single year so that it helps our applicants.
Yeah, Crystal, if I can add
Yes, sir.
to that, you want to be modest. Please do not state, I'm going to reach 12,000 people. Make sure that you have the actual amount of people or number of people you believe you can reach out to. And the moment you you don't want to impress the reviewers. Do not try to over-impress the reviewers. Do the best you can to put your best foot forward, and you will be fine. Back to you, Crystal.
Thank you. Sorry, I had to sneeze and I didn't want to sneeze on camera. Yes, you want to put your best foot forward. And remember, these reviewers are from all aspects. So they're farmers, they're professors, they're people that work in extension. So they're all different aspects. So you want to make sure that you're writing it so that every language can understand, because we get into a rut where wherever we're at, like if we're food science, we use language in that food science area that maybe some other sections won't understand. So you want to make sure if you're using those, if you're using acronyms, if you're using such things like that, really try to avoid them. But if you're going to use them, make sure you explain them, because not everyone's going to use the same wording and same language. All right, get a case ID number. If you have issues, you want to make sure that you're getting that case ID number, that you're contacting grants.gov and you're letting them know that there's an error and you're having an issue, and you take down as much information as you need, because then we have to use that information to make a case for you to go ahead and still your proposal be reviewed. If not, if you don't have a case number, you don't have when you put in that you had a problem and you couldn't put your submission in, then there's not a whole lot we can do for you. The submission is closed, the deadline is over, and we have to say that you didn't make the deadline. So if you are having issues with grants.gov, the first thing you want to do is contact them. We're not grants.gov. Let us know. You can CC us on that same email, or you can email us immediately after. The best is CC, but you can email us immediately after. Let us know we had issues. We put in, here's my tracking number, my ID number for the problem, and they're getting back to me. And then we know that you made the deadline. You're just having issues with grants.gov. Now, if you're having, internet issues, then you need to still be on the deadline. So that's why I say make sure that you're submitting like a week early, because internet issues are not going to help the case. What's going to help the case is grants.gov was down for 3 hours and you couldn't get your proposal in. So you really, really want to try to get it in early. I think about a week and a half is about right. And then I can go in and look at, make sure everything was uploaded and made it. All attachments must be submitted in PDF. I know I keep saying this and it's in here many, many times, but you would not believe how many people still submit with Word. We cannot take Word. We will not see it. It doesn't even show up. So even if we had it, it's going to be like blank papers. So make sure that you are putting it in PDF. If it is in Word, then we won't be able to say that we received it and it won't be part of your proposal. So whatever does make it in PDF will be part of your proposal. So you don't want 3 pages to be in PDF and that's what makes it to your proposal because you're likely not to get funded with just those 3 pages. Make sure that you check to see if there are any errors and that you go back. And again, I can help with that. You can correct the errors again. You can put in as many submissions as you need. And the latest version will be what is used to review. So you'll get 3 emails from grants.gov. The first one is to confirm that they received it. The second one is to indicate validation. And the third is to indicate, and that means that it was rejected or it was accepted. So rejections mean that you didn't have all the pieces that it needed and critical pieces that are required to have to submit. If you're missing one of those, then it will be rejected. Validation just means that you have all the pieces, it's there, and it will get reviewed. It is not saying that you'll get funded or that you have what it takes, you know, or it has all the pieces. It just says that all the pieces look like they're there. And then the third one indicates that you've submitted to NIFA. Then you need to watch for to make sure that NIFA has a receipt and that it says it's been accepted or declined by NIFA. And then we go into the screening process. The screening for the RFA and NIFA grants.gov, application guide, program scope, mandatory components, budget, total, duration, page limits, font, etc. All of that is in the RFA and you can find it by reviewing it. And if you have questions, let me know. Late submissions are automatically rejected. There are no late submissions. There's no asking for a later timestamp. We just make it very fair, no bias. Everyone has to submit by that 5 p.m. deadline, Eastern Standard Time. Again, if you have a grants.gov issue, then put in that ticket, let us know that ticket number, and we'll work with you and grants.gov and our leadership to try to get your proposal moved forward. Contact the NPL if you have any questions. Again, that's Denis. You can contact me if you have not heard anything or if you do not, or if you have specific questions. The review process, many of you probably know this, but you're reviewed by your peers. So the people that you work beside and you work alongside, including farmers. So they're going to be who's reviewing your proposal. So make sure it makes sense to a farmer, make sure it makes sense to the stakeholders, and the stakeholders need the program. They're going to be the ones that review this and pick out, some things that they might flag. You really want to concentrate on an evaluation. A lot of people submit proposals and they're weak in the evaluation criteria. If you have questions, not specifically about the evaluation, but evaluation in general to your proposal, you can contact me. I am certified in evaluation, so I can answer, what needs to be there. I can't help you with content, but I can help you with what needs to be there. Make sure that your evaluation is starting before the project starts. An evaluation starts before your project. So you want an evaluator who's already aware of evaluation, who already has a strength in evaluation and can start that evaluation before your project does. And then have time during the project that they're interacting with the stakeholders and they're taking those surveys or interviews or whatever their methods are. And then a final way to evaluate your program, and then a follow-up within 6 months, a year, so forth, whatever your evaluation looks like. But make sure that you're completing those steps. And again, you want to make sure that you have someone that is extremely versed in evaluation and they start that project before the program starts. Okay. It's completely confidential. The reviewers will not be identified. We do this for a number of reasons, but we will not give information on who the reviewers are, and you will receive what they reviewed, and what their comments were, but you will not receive who they are or where they work or anything like that. We've had a few that have asked that question if they could get the name of the reviewers. We simply leave that completely confidential for obvious reasons to make sure that they're able to review those proposals. Approximate timeline, the proposals are all due again April 27th, 2023 at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The review process takes about 3 weeks. Reviewers get sent the proposals. Everything stays confidential. The processing and recommended award takes about 3 months. We give the date of August 31st. You will likely hear something before that, but we will respond within that 3 months, and you will receive an email from the system. You will also receive an email from us, and before you receive those two, you will likely receive a phone call from myself or Denis. The projects all start for all programs on September 15th, 2023. Is when all projects will start. This means it is the end of our fiscal year, which means you'll have to put in, if you get recommended for funding and you accept the funding, then you will have to put in a final report before you actually really get moving on your project. And we understand that, but that's the way that it works at NIFA. So all projects start September 15th, 2023. Contact information, again, it looks like first name dot last name at USDA.gov. That's what most of your emails will look like. For the BFRDP, please contact myself, Rebecca, or Denis. If you were interested in that ag vet, you can contact myself or Brenda. And agribility, myself, and Tiffany's email should be on here, which I will add. And Tiffany is on, and it's her first name dot last name. And I'll put that, actually, Tiffany, if you don't mind putting it in the chat. And Vicky is the NPL for that one, so you can contact any of us. This is just some grant resources that you can, if you have questions, you can look into and do some investigating on your own, and then some links that you can, and again, you'll have these because I'll send these, but just some information that you can look at. This is links, and then you can go and explore and see what you find. If you have direct questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to Denis and I. We'd rather answer your questions and make sure that your proposal is ready to go than to you guess and put something in and it doesn't fit. Contact information for grants.gov. This is the number. It's open 24/7 except for on federal holidays. And then support at grants.gov if you need that case number or you're having difficulties. Non-discrimination statement. This is by law needed to be shared with you with NIFA. If you feel you've been discriminated against based on any race, color, national creed, disability, age, so forth, you absolutely have the right to reach out to any of us, but also to this, if you're not comfortable with that, this number and email, and make sure that you have your voice heard. And again,
thank you.
You will receive these, so you'll be able to look at that yourself and read through it. All right, so that's the end of the presentation. I hope that that helped, and I'll send it back over to Denis and answer some more questions.
Yeah, thank you, Crystal, for the presentation. Thank you, Becca, for responding to those questions on the chart. Now, one of the questions here is, do we pay mentorships and apprenticeships? Yes, absolutely. You do pay mentorships, mentors, and apprentices in your work. Now, if you meet with farmers, do you document that? If you get letters of support from them, that's a good evidence that you have met with farmers. Sometimes we have proposals that do not state their meeting with or consultation with farmers before starting. And of course, if you look at the evaluation criteria, you see that those points will be deducted. So please, take care of that very comment or number when it comes to the evaluation criteria. If you please send us your email address, we'll make sure we send you all the slides being used in this very session. And we cannot thank you enough for coming in for this very webinar. And we do apologize for all the distractions during this session. We can take a few more questions before we adjourn. One more I would like to talk about. Can you submit more than one proposal? If as an applicant, you are submitting 2 proposals, those 2 proposals will be declined. But if you're an organization or academia, you can submit as many as you want from the same institution, but only one will be funded. The most meritorious proposal will be funded, and not more than one. So you can submit as many as you like from the same institution. And if you're an existing grantee and you have a grant that was funded in 2021 or 2022, you are not eligible to apply this year. If it's a simplified grant, which is for 1 year, certainly you can apply this year. So with the time remaining, we can take additional questions. We cannot thank you enough for hanging in with us this afternoon.
Sorry, I had my hand raised. Can I ask a question?
Please.
Okay. So within the RFA, there is a particular statement that I just want to get some clarity on. Hold on here. Let me make sure I'm reading it correctly. Basically, applications from partnerships and collaborations that are led by or include non-governmental organizations, community-based organizations, and school-based agricultural educational organizations, expertise in agricultural training and outreach for beginning producers will be given priority in funding. So I'm reading that as I need to get an NGO, a CBO, or an SAEO on board with this project in a partnership or collaboration to increase my likelihood of getting funding. Would that be a correct assumption?
No, it would not be.
Why?
What it means is that traditionally we get about 65% fund applications from non-academia and 35% from academia. So if it comes to a point where a decision has to be made, then priority will be given to the non-academia. Does that make sense?
Well, no, not really, because I feel like the question that I'm asking here is that I am an LLC. I'm a private company. So clearly I'm eligible individual as an individual, like I can apply for this, but I'm reading this as saying that if I don't have collaborations or partnerships with with one of these types of organizations, that it'll be a lower priority in funding.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that question. This is legislative priority. If you apply by yourself with no partners, you could be funded, but at a lower priority. That is why partnership is very important. Does that help?
I mean, yeah, it helps, and that is okay. So that answers the first part of the question. The second part of the question is that's challenging, and I feel like especially for small farms or even mid-sized farms, that don't have a lot of. Essentially we are beginning farmers and ranchers. We're some of those people, and to find NGOs, CBOs, and SAEOs that would actually partner with us on some of these projects it's a bit of a high bar to meet. You guys have any guidance or training or assistance that you can provide us to actually create some of these partnerships and collaborations?
Okay, now let me ask you, this is a very good question you are asking. If you look at the evaluation criteria, there's about 10 to 15 points on partnerships and collaboration.
Right.
Now, it is highly impossible, maybe it is possible, it is highly impossible for one person to get all the work done if you're asking for $750,000. Now, if you believe you don't need partners, then please make your case in your application, and that will be taken into consideration.
Yeah, so No, I appreciate that. I think maybe I'm just maybe not being clear here. So I have partners and I have collaborators. They're just not NGOs, CBOs, and SAEOs. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's not so much that I don't have those things that you're defining, or that I don't have that type of help. And to get the project completed, I just don't have these particular agencies.
No, your partners don't have to be all NGOs or CBOs. So long as you have more than one person, more than one entity, you are fine. What is in here is a legislative language. I cannot change that language. But all I'm sharing with you is that if you are applying by yourself and you don't have other groups, then you need to make a strong case for that.
I understand. I know that you guys are beholden to the legislation in terms of how it's written, and I appreciate that. Oh, I think the challenge for us reading the RFA is that you guys say go to the RFA, and this is like one of the first things the RFA says, and so it's hard for us to know how important something like this is for us to get funding. And so in my mind, reading this, it tells me that I need to get this. I need to have a partnership collaboration with one of these agencies. It's just hard to come by. And if
well, you make a justification as to why you don't have those.
Okay.
If you don't have them, you don't have them. You're not going to forge or make them up. So
no, we wouldn't do that. So hey, I'm just gonna throw this out there. Maybe something for the future for you guys is to perhaps give some guidance and some advice and help on generating these kinds of connections, because ultimately, you know, the spirit of the program is to help beginning farmers and ranchers, but you need the backing, or at least a partnership with some larger entities that have reputations and credibility with getting projects completed and doing that kind of thing. It's a disconnect. It's a disconnect because, you know, ultimately there's a lot of people on this call, I'm sure, who are just, you know, they're brand new. They don't have a lot of experience with these things, and ultimately we need a lot of help, especially from you.
That is correct. That is why the new applicants will start with the simplified grants before they move on up.
Right.
But your point is well taken.
Okay.
And please do not let that discourage you from applying.
No. I'm still applying. I'm hoping I can find somebody to collaborate with me in the meantime. But I appreciate your guys' time. You guys have been great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, if you don't have more than one entity, please give your justification.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome. Please send us your email addresses so we can send you all the relevant information you need. And again, March 28th from 1 to 3 Central, and April 11th, 1 to 3 Central for Q&As. And one point I would like to mention here is the fact that if you already had a DUNS number in the past, please try and register with the unique entity identifier. And any information you have in DUNS will transfer to the UEI, and you have to change the address because your address from DUNS will not transfer to UEI. And we've had challenges with that this past grant cycle. And please take note of that to ensure that your registration is current before you apply. Crystal, Rebecca, any final comments or any additional questions from our participants?
I had a question, if there's
Sure.
time.
Sure.
We are a national nonprofit who serves beginning farmers and ranchers all around the country, and we partner with different organizations who serve communities, local communities of farmers and ranchers. Is there any limitation on, like, do most grantees who for this program, is it required that we only focus on one physical locale, or beginning farmers and ranchers in one physical locale? Or is it okay to have an application that would serve beginning farmers and ranchers in multiple locations around the country?
That's a tall order.
Well, we do a lot of virtual training. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, the reason I say that, in the times of when we really actually had the pandemic, Yeah, I think it's justifiable to say, well, everything is going to be virtual. But this is a program that needs hands-on. So it's sort of difficult. If you're going to do a bridge program, that's understandable. We are not going to discourage you from doing all virtual. Now you have to make your case to in your application why you are doing all virtual and no hands-on. And it
Yeah.
depends on what you're going to be teaching.
Right. I mean, in this
You
case,
know.
it's marketing and business training,
Yeah.
which doesn't.
It depends on what you're going to be teaching, because if you're going to be teaching farm safety,
Right.
I mean,
Right. Of
I don't
course.
think you can do that by virtual.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. So it all depends on the course.
Okay. But it's not net, if it makes sense, what we are teaching doesn't need to be hands-on and can be taught virtually to many different communities of people. That's not gonna, there's nothing explicit that says.
No, that is
you can-
correct.
Okay, got it.
It
Thank you.
can be done. It can be done.
Okay.
We do thank you all. Any final questions? I see a hand up. Steve, any final comments, please?
I put my name and email address in the chat. My name is Stephen Evans. So like Crystal was saying, it's first name dot last name at usda.gov. If there's any questions about the pre-awards section, or if you have any general questions, you can send to me and I'll forward it to, Dennis and Crystal for them to answer and reply to you. Beyond that, Dennis, I looked at all the chat and I didn't see anything else that needed to be answered that hasn't been talked about.
Yeah, we do thank you. Is William here? Thank you, William, for the presentation.
Thank you.
And thank you. Ben, I think Ben has left. Now, Crystal, any final thoughts?
Yes, I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for joining us. I know we had some issues in the beginning and with links, etc. But thank you for sticking in there. We want to make sure that you're getting this information. And so sometimes technology happens, bad days happen. But thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for our presenters for sticking with us and getting the information out. Steve, thank you so much for coming and helping us with questions. And helping us with the chat and also giving out all the information that was needed. I really thank everyone for being here, and I really wish you good luck on your proposals and getting them turned in on time. And if you have any questions or need any assistance, any way that I can help, please let me know. Rebecca?
Yeah, sure. Rebecca, please.
Thank you everyone for being here today. I put our emails in the chat as well, so feel free to reach out. Thanks.
Okay. Tiffany? Okay. Sherry?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Tiffany.
Hold on.
Tiffany,
Okay.
any final thoughts?
Oh, no, it's none at all. Everybody, I've just been listening. I didn't catch on to nothing that I need to step in and say, so you're good.
Thank you for your participation.
Oh,
Sherry?
you're welcome.
Okay.
Yes, this is Sherry with the 2501 program. Based on a lot of your questions, it seems like a lot of you would be eligible for applying for the 2501 program. So I would just like to encourage you to be on the lookout for when our funding opportunity announcement is posted, because we will also be holding a webinar on 2 different occasions similar to this. Even though our program is structured a little bit differently than the BFRDP program, it sounds like a lot of you who I'm not familiar with have not tried to apply for our program in the past. So I just want to encourage you to look for our funding opportunity announcement and see if your project is eligible for funding. So thank you so much, Dennis, for inviting our 2501 team.
Thank you. Thank you, Sherry. Brenda?
Well, hi there. Thank you, Dennis, for giving me the opportunity to say a little something. Sherry pretty much covered it. Covered everything that I wanted to add as well. So I just wanted to say good luck to everyone who applies. It's a great program. So do your best and give it a shot.
Thank you.
Dennis.
Thank you. Any final comments from our participants? Any final comments? Please send us your email. And it will be a reminder that March 28th, 1 to 3 Central, April 11th, 1 to 3 Central for Q&As. If not, thank you all so much. And we appreciate your coming.
Thank you, everyone.